I believe that most classical piano pieces are possible to play within the next year or so, following these steps.
The first thing we're going to do is to go back to the level you're actually at on the piano. Why is a level 6 piece currently out of your reach? Firstly, it would definitely take so long to read or memorize, because there's so many patterns you're only discovering for the first time. But that's only a matter of time. The real issue would be with technique, because you don't know how to play these scales in thirds or arpeggios in the left hand. So, how can we make sure it's not the first time we're seeing all of these new patterns? The most reliable way to build piano skill is to build it up gradually. Let's see how we would be able to build up from our current level all the way to learning just this section of Clair de Lune from Debussy. And the way we're going to be building up our piano skill is with progressive studies. And for this video, we'll keep it simple and just use those of Burgmüller. And the reason this will work extremely well is that first, they're designed to be progressive in difficulty, and secondly, you're coming across each new technique or each new pattern one by one. Each piece was specifically designed to teach you one new thing. But obviously, Clair de Lune already uses a lot of these, so we'll need to gradually build up. Let's start at level 3 by learning these scales in thirds.
These 25 easy and progressive exercises are just such a great way for beginners to start building their technique. But to go about practicing Clair de Lune, let's start with the 4th piece in this set, because it covers scales in thirds. Playing these thirds with correct fingering, making sure you can't hear it because they're so even, is a common challenge for beginner pianists. Since it's a pattern of 9 thirds, it's way more difficult to make them sound even. But the staccato, the slow tempo, and the key of C major help a lot with this. And that's the exact reason that I recommend these pieces and that they work so well, because all the other variables are essentially reduced to 0. The left hand as well, it plays a single note. So all your attention can go to learning this new technique.
But after going through all of these progressive studies, we're still far away from the final result. So let's move on to level 4. For level 4, we're going to be using the Opus 109, already intermediate level studies. And this is where we're going to learn about voicing.
Voicing, very simply explained, is just being able to separate the top melody from the middle notes. And this can be tricky because you're playing these notes in the same hand, but this can be very useful later on. And once again, Burgmüller writes a great piece for you to be able to focus on this. Focus on the top melody, but play it extreme legato. And then add in the middle notes, but play them very light and staccato. And after you exaggerate this a lot, you will be able to implement this much easier naturally.
So now we also know how to play voicing on top of scales in thirds, so the right hand should no longer be an issue. But we can still see the left hand arpeggios might be difficult. So now we're moving on to Opus 105 from Burgmüller at level 5.
And the first piece already of the Opus 105 set immediately practices arpeggios. And don't be scared away from the music seat because it looks way more difficult than it actually is. All we're really doing is taking the voicing, which we already learned in the right hand, and just adding arpeggios in the left. And these arpeggios aren't even that difficult. They're 2 octave arpeggios for basic triads. So in terms of technique, this already brings us super close to the Debussy, because now we're only 1 level away.
And now already, after just 3 simple levels, you're able to play this Clair de Lune piece. However, don't just play these specific pieces so you can get to Clair de Lune. I really recommend you to go through each level and learn all of the patterns so that you're an actual level 6 pianist. Because really, if you just play those pieces, you might be a level 6 pianist for just that piece, but filling out those gaps later is just such a big struggle and is really not worth it. Trust me, I've been there before. To learn the Revolutionary Etude by Chopin, I learned 3 Czerny etudes, which would get me closer to that point. And while this actually can work surprisingly well, it's just not worth it, because you're going to end up tricking yourself. You're a pianist of that level, which you're not. And your ego is going to take such a big hit once you have to go back to playing those level 3 pieces. There's obviously many ways to build a basis in piano technique, but just simply following this advice and going through the Opus 100 Opus 109, and then Opus 105 of the Burke-Muller studies will already do so much to build a strong basis for your piano technique. And even on top of just playing these studies, there are so many extra things you could add on top, like working with a warm-up to build finger strength, which I've got a free document on, which is the first link in the description. Regardless, to reach pieces like Clair de Lune, those progressive studies would already be everything you need.